Hi again, Keith Bond from Bond Christian Counseling here. Today we want to talk about boundaries and specifically boundaries in marriage. And there's a lot of foundation to cover before we can really get into it. First off, if you haven't studied boundaries, you need to study boundaries. There is so much vital relational information in there that you have to be familiar with because most relationships are straight boundaries. The first principle is in order to have healthy boundaries, you have to take responsibility for yourself. And then you can be responsible for others. So, this little diagram says that we adults are responsible for ourselves in this spectrum, all these ages. But then over here, in the children, age 0 to 18, we are responsible for children. And yet, on the other end of the spectrum, aging adults, we are responsible for aging adults. And yet, everybody else, except for a tiny smattering of population that can't take care of themselves, we are responsible for them. Other than that, everybody else is responsible for themselves. And the truth is, we have a whole world full of victims because nobody's been given access to anger. And so, in the straight boundaries material, um, if we're going to have healthy boundaries, we're going to have the responsibilities that come with our boundaries. And so that means that I am responsible for my feelings, for my attitudes, for my beliefs, for my behaviors, for my choices, for my thoughts, for my resources, for my values, for my decisions, for my desires, for my love. And so we have to take responsibility for ourselves first. And this is a key component before our anger can actually do its job. And so there's lots of concepts that are colliding here in order to fully understand. So it's a lot of self-reflection and self-examination. Um, but the way that our feelings are tied to this is because our anger specifically is there to to it does three things. Remember, our anger points us to our need for our voice to be heard. And when I do that and trust God, so I'll do my part about uh, time plus patience plus willingness and plus work, and God's going to give me the gift of the passion. Well, anger motivates us. Anger clarifies. That's what I'm doing right now. Clarify, 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 clarify. And then this last one, anger warns. And so if I'm not being responsible for myself, and then somebody tries to give me their attitudes or their feelings, their beliefs, their desires, then I won't even recognize it. But when I am taking responsibility for myself and all of those components that come inside of the boundaries material, then all of a sudden, if I have access to my anger is going to do its job and warn me. When somebody tries to give me their attitudes and their beliefs and their desires, I'm going to be like, hold on. I'm already being responsible for mine. That's yours. And so you're responsible for your attitudes, for your feelings, for your beliefs, for your desires, and that's yours. So all of this is clarifying what's mine and what's not mine. And if you remember this other diagram about the confusion, remember the confusion, which was where I end and where someone else begins. This diagram illustrates it pretty nicely about the confusion of, hey, that where do I end and where do you begin? Because this is mine, but this is kind of me too, and then this is us, but then this is, well, that gets confusing. I need to know what is mine and what's not mine. And then I can have an us, but I still am clear about what's not mine because I've started with taking responsibility with what is mine. So, here is a new construct called a window of tolerance. And so most psychologies are going to try to teach you how to self-regulate, which we do need that bottom-up work. We need these skills but I want to simplify it for you, because as you start to clarify that, I'm going to call this baseline. And up here is joy. And down here is sadness. And so you were made, and I'm going to make a color blue, because so I was made to live in the fullness of my joy and the fullness of my sadness. That's where full living happens, right? But then we have these events here where my brain kicks in and tries to keep me from re-experiencing something. And I think that I can subsequently numb out just the bad, but I can't. I end up numbing the good too. And so I end up living a life in a really narrow band with very little joy and very little sadness because I'm living numbed. Well, the big problem with that is now I can't sit in someone else's window of tolerance. So there's my spouse, and whenever I experience her outside of my window of tolerance, then I kick into my fight, flight, and freeze mode. And we can't get into any content of the discussion because my fear and my shame come up and I'm on my heels. And that's when it's like self-protection, self-preservation, and those are the enemies of love. I can't love from that place. I can't. And so when my stuff comes up, I'm really no good in the rest of this conversation. I have to exit and self-regulate so that I can take ownership of what is mine and then re-engage in the conversation from a place of responsibility. So the biggest goal right here is I need to increase my tolerance I need to come back up here. And I need to increase my tolerance for my emotions. But I also need to increase my tolerance for other people's emotions, because that same shutdown mode is going to happen when I'm outside of my window of tolerance, as it will happen when I'm watching someone else. So that's where it gets really tricky inside of marriage. And that's why the Lord uses your marriage as his sharpest scalpel of refinement, double-edged sword of exposing what's on the inside of you. Because you've heard this before, probably, about you squeeze an orange, you get an orange juice. You squeeze a lemon, you get lemon juice. You squeeze a Christian, and you get what's inside. And the truth is, I don't really know my character until I don't get my way. People's true character comes out when we don't get our way. And that's what the Lord is trying to refine off of you. So the biggest question is, can you be okay while your spouse is not okay? That's hard to do, because that's that redefinition of hurt. Hurt is a willingness in healthy relationships to allow someone to feel their own hurt and pain because you have genuine regard, concern, and care and love for them. Strange, isn't it? Kind of like a paradox, like the Lord enjoys doing. So I hope this blessed you. Probably might want to watch it a couple of times and really chew on it. So as always, all that I have is yours. Feel free to call or text or email's the best. Any questions and follow up, I'd love to help out in any way that I can. God bless. Have a great day.